To ask you what that experience was like for you as a sensei and how it applies to your work now.
So I was really fortunate to have had the opportunity to be on Fred Korematsu's legal team. After those documents you heard about in the film, there was evidence found that the government suppressed, altered, and destroyed evidence while it was arguing Fred Korematsu's case before the U.S. Supreme Court. I was 2 years out of law school at the point in time that we started work on this case, and it was quite an amazing experience to be able to be involved in a fairly large suit against the U.S. government at such a young age. But the good thing is that we had a winner of a case. The evidence was from the government's own files, and so it was irrefutable. And as you saw in the film, there were lawyers for the U.S. government who were telling their superiors that they were committing a suppression of evidence. So it was really difficult. It wasn't like we made this stuff up. So it was a really pretty remarkable experience. It leads to my present work. As I said, I work with the Korematsu Center now at Seattle University, and I want to say a couple of things about that. One is that in the film, they made the point that Korematsu has never been overruled, even though we won vacation of his conviction and proved that the U.S. Supreme Court was lied to. Well, for those of you who heard about the Supreme Court's decision in the travel ban case, Trump versus Hawaii, the majority opinion, Justice Roberts in that case, upheld the travel ban against a majority of Muslim countries. But at the same time, it upheld this religious-based discrimination, upheld a travel ban instituted by a president who said that we have to keep Muslims out of the country. And the Supreme Court said that that was okay. At the same time, the Supreme Court said, we also want to take this opportunity to overrule Korematsu versus United States, which was horrible, because as much as people have wanted for years and years and years, to see the Supreme Court finally overrule Korematsu, it was totally hollow. Because what it did was it overruled Korematsu in the context of upholding a really blatant religious-based discrimination against individuals from majority Muslim countries. So I think actually the way to really look at this is that the Supreme Court didn't overrule Korematsu at all. All it did was do the exact same thing that the court did in Korematsu during World War II. And I know that may sound like, how could that happen? Don't we have a system of rational laws? I'm a lawyer, I'm a law professor. It happened because they let it happen. So I'm not going to pretend that it's got to make any sense. But basically, I think what the court said is what we did during World War II against Japanese Americans was really terrible. But this is different. This is against, these foreign countries, and we want to keep our country safe. So I think my real message is that we have to really look at the whole issue about what we do in times of perceived crisis. Our willingness to sacrifice civil liberties during times of crisis is a continuing issue. And even if the Supreme Court said it overruled Korematsu, it did not at all. It just reinvigorated it.
Feel free to jump in if you have any thoughts going on. Given that clearly, it's overruled, but it's not in terms of our public consciousness and the issues that we're facing. I know that Densho does a lot of work dealing with bringing our history to the present and trying to make sure that it doesn't happen again through remembering. So, Nina, I was wondering if you could give us some insight into what you think are the most important things that we can do right now to make sure that history stops repeating itself.
Yeah, I think when I hear this question, something that I think of a lot is a particular photo that's in our archives. And so this is a picture of when Japanese Americans from Bainbridge Island were taken from the island, brought to Seattle, and put on a train to Manzanar. This was the first community in the country that was sent to camp. So it's, once the military started issuing these exclusion orders, this was exclusion order number 1. And there's this photo of these 227 people from Bainbridge Island boarding the train to Manzanar. And if you look carefully in the background of this photo, you can see there are hundreds of people in the background who are just there to watch this happen. And they're just kind of silently, watching as people are being taken away. And something that I think about is, how might this have been different if instead of just, silently watching this happen, what if those people had done something? What if they had said something? What if they had gone home and written a letter to their senator, or written a letter to the editor of their local paper? Being the Seattle Times, which, by the way, ran a headline of this story that said, "Tears and smiles mingle as Japs bid Bainbridge farewell." But anyways, I bring this up because I think a phrase that we use a lot at Densho lately is to be the allies that we needed in 1942. I'm also a 4th generation Japanese American. My family was really lucky that they were far enough east that they didn't have to go to camp. But I think that as a community, when you think back to, the fact that, no one really said anything, no one stood up and did anything at the time, when we see that history being repeated around the Muslim ban or, these immigrant children who are being incarcerated at the moment, I think that there is kind of more energy and more, people are actually saying something. And I think the most important thing that you can do is use your voice, and think about, what are your strengths? What are your capabilities? Are you a good writer? Okay, cool. Write a letter to the editor when you see media, saying that migrant children are being treated fairly because they're getting a free education in, these prison camps that they're in. Are you artsy? Can you make a cool protest sign to bring to the next march? Think about what are the tables that you sit at? Who do you have access to? And how can you bring this conversation to that table? So I think, just use your voice, use the capabilities that you have, and really just, look around and see what needs to be done.